There is a doorway inside you that only opens at night. When the world grows quiet, when the mind stops clinging to fear, when the conscious will finally loosens its grip, your subconscious steps forward to listen. And whatever it hears in those hours determines the prosperity of your days. Most people fall asleep, rehearsing worry. They replay unpaid bills, past mistakes, conversations that wounded them, futures they dread. And without realizing it, they hand those fears to the subconscious like a script. Here, they say in silence, make this my reality, and the subconscious, faithful and obedient, does exactly as it is told. But imagine something different. Imagine falling asleep tonight with words of abundance pouring into your inner world. Words that bypass fear, dissolve limitation, and plant the seeds of wealth where no doubt can uproot them. Imagine giving your subconscious a new script, the right script, the divine script, and waking into a life shaped by supply instead of struggle. This is the power of what you are about to hear. Let me take you into a moment many never recognize as destiny. It is late. The lights are low. You lie in bed, exhausted by a day that felt heavier than it should. Your mind wanders through lack, through fear, through repetition of old patterns. But then, something within you whispers, I want a different life. That whisper is not longing. It is instruction. It is your spirit signaling that your subconscious is ready to be rewritten. But here lies the danger. If you fall asleep holding fear, you will wake into more of what you fear. If you fall asleep feeling unworthy, you will wake into a world that confirms it. If you fall asleep declaring, I don't know how I'll make it, the subconscious will accept that as command. Sleep is not a break from creation. Sleep is the most powerful part of creation. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine descending into sleep while hearing a steady stream of truth. You are supplied. You are guided. You are provided for in perfect ways. Money flows to you through unexpected channels. Every need is met before it arises. Imagine those words sinking deeper than your conscious mind could ever reach. When you fall asleep to prosperity, you wake into prosperity. Let me tell you a case that clarified this law for me. A man came burdened by decades of financial fear. He worked faithfully, yet always felt behind. At night, he replayed every mistake. He believed worry was responsible caution, but worry was writing tomorrow. I instructed him to change nothing about his job, nothing about his plans, only what he fed his subconscious at night. He began falling asleep to words of abundance, protection, and divine supply. In less than 3 months, his life shifted. Unexpected income, new opportunities, ideas that bore fruit. He said, "It feels like my life turned while I was sleeping." It had. This is what happens when truth enters the place where fear once wrote its laws. Listen closely. Your subconscious does not argue. It does not question. It accepts. And whatever it accepts, your outer world expresses. If you give it fear, it multiplies fear. If you give it truth, it multiplies truth. If you give it divine supply, it multiplies prosperity in every direction of your life. Let me paint another scene you may know intimately. You wake each morning already tired, not because your body needed rest, but because your subconscious spent the night digesting fear. Your dreams felt heavy. Your first thoughts were anxious. You stepped into your day feeling already defeated. But imagine waking differently. Imagine opening your eyes into peace instead of dread. Imagine feeling rested, light, expectant. Imagine knowing, without knowing how, that today will unfold in your favor. Imagine hearing a whisper in your spirit, all is well, all is coming. all is supplied. This is what happens when your sleep becomes agreement with truth. But let me speak plainly, for the stakes are high. If you ignore this, if you keep falling asleep to fear, the next year of your life will look painfully like the last. Cycles will repeat. Bills will echo old patterns. Opportunities will slip by unnoticed. Not because you are unlucky, but because your subconscious was never given permission to shift. Yet, if you embrace this, if you allow 2 hours of truth to wash over your inner world each night, your life will begin to change quietly at first, then dramatically. Let me give you the spiritual mechanics. During sleep, the conscious mind, the doubting mind, steps aside. Its objections fall silent, its fears cannot speak, and in that holy quiet, the subconscious accepts what it hears with unquestioning faith. This is why nighttime is the hour of miracles. A woman once wrote to me, overwhelmed by debt, fear, and the belief that she was not the kind of person who becomes prosperous. Her days were filled with strain, but her nights were filled with heaviness. I told her, your prosperity will begin the moment your nights change. She committed to listening to truth as she slept. Within weeks, her entire atmosphere shifted. Her income steadied. Unexpected help arose. Doors opened. She said, I stopped waking into fear. That alone changed everything. Now let me speak directly to you. You do not need to force prosperity. You need to allow it. You need to let the subconscious, the fertile soil of your soul, receive the right seeds. And the most receptive moment of your entire day is the moment before sleep. So hear this. Tonight can be the turning point of your life, not by effort, but by absorption, not by striving, but by surrender, not by willpower, but by receiving truth in the deepest part of yourself, but only if you give your subconscious nourishment instead of fear. For 2 hours, let these words seep into your inner world. Let them replace the old agreements. Let them turn fear into faith. Let them rebuild your consciousness of supply. Let them open the channels that have been blocked for years. As this message continues, listen with the part of you that knows. You are meant for abundance. You are designed for ease. You are wired for divine provision. And as you sleep, you will absorb these truths. You will embody these truths. You will express these truths until divine supply becomes the natural rhythm of your entire life. Because once the subconscious accepts prosperity, the outer world has no choice but to obey. When the world grows quiet and the shadows lengthen upon the walls, when the noise of the day loosens its grip and the weary mind releases its hold upon the outer world, a sacred chamber opens within man's own being. It is a doorway hidden from the hurried, unknown to the anxious, overlooked by the impatient, yet recognized instantly by the soul that has grown tired of struggle. I have always said that man's greatest miracles are prepared in silence, and nowhere is that silence more powerful than in the hour before sleep. For in that hour, the conscious mind, the doubter, the worrier, the planner, the critic, steps aside, and the subconscious emerges, faithful as the tides, ready to take instruction. It is then that the seeds of prosperity can be planted in soil so deep, so receptive, that nothing in the waking world can uproot them. Many people spend their last waking moments rehearsing fear. They lie upon their beds as though upon altars of sacrifice, offering the worst imaginings of their minds to the unseen forces that shape their tomorrows. They say, how will I ever pay this bill? Or, what if trouble comes tomorrow? Or, I never seem to get ahead. They do not realize that every such word is a command, a decree, a law written upon the sensitive surface of the subconscious. The subconscious, obedient and impartial, receives these fearful sentences as orders. It prepares the next day accordingly, and thus man awakens to the very conditions he dreaded, bewildered that life seems always to echo his fears. But when a seeker begins to understand the laws of the subconscious, the hour before sleep becomes a sanctuary. The bed becomes an altar of truth. The darkness becomes a garment of peace. And the night becomes an instrument through which divine intelligence works swiftly, quietly, and perfectly. When man falls asleep to prosperity, he awakens to prosperity. When he falls asleep to lack, he awakens to lack. The night is the great scribe of destiny. I once taught a man who came to me worn thin by decades of financial anxiety. His days were filled with strain, his nights with torment. He told me, "When I lie down, I replay every mistake. I imagine every possible misfortune. I cannot help it. It is as though my mind becomes a theater of disasters." I answered him, "Your mind becomes a theater because you have abandoned the director's chair. Your subconscious is staging the drama you permit." I instructed him to change nothing about his work, nothing about his outer life, only the words he sent into the inner sanctuary at night. I said to him, "Speak softly as you drift into sleep. I rest in divine abundance. The Christ within supplies my every need. Let these be the last sounds the subconscious hears." He obeyed. For weeks he felt nothing but a faint sense of peace. Then, without effort, opportunities began to appear, small at first, then larger. Unexpected money came. People who had overlooked him suddenly remembered his value. Within 3 months, he said to me, "It feels as though my life turned while I was sleeping." And indeed, it had. Another woman told me she feared the night because her dreams were heavy and her mornings heavier still. She carried her exhaustion into each new day like a stone. When I asked what she thought before sleep, she said, "I think of everything that went wrong. I think of my failures. I think of how small my life feels." I replied, "You are handing your subconscious a script of defeat each night. You must hand it the script of victory." I taught her to say, "As I sleep, the Christ within works wonders in my affairs," and to repeat it gently until sleep claimed her. Soon her dreams lightened, her mornings softened, her days changed, her entire atmosphere grew brighter. Even her family noticed the transformation. She told me, "I stopped waking into fear." And I said, "Exactly. You changed your night, and so your day obeyed." You see, the subconscious mind is a servant, a perfect, tireless servant. It does not question. It does not interpret. It accepts. Whatever you repeat with feeling becomes its marching order. During the day, this servant works under the stern supervision of the conscious mind. But at night, oh glorious truth, the conscious mind falls silent, and the subconscious becomes sole ruler of the inward kingdom. It works through the quiet hours, arranging, aligning, dissolving, and manifesting according to the last decree it received. This is why I say, the hour before sleep is the most powerful hour of your entire day. It is the hour in which you choose tomorrow's harvest. Picture your subconscious as a deep pool. During the day, the surface is stirred and troubled by the winds of circumstance, the chatter of the world, the noise of obligation. But at night, the winds fall still. The surface grows calm, like glass. And then, into this still pool, you drop a single word, a single phrase, a single affirmation. It sinks to the bottom, where no disturbance can touch it. And from that depth, it begins to shape your life. Do you not see how sacred this is? A woman once told me she felt foolish speaking affirmations at night. "What is the use?" she asked. "Nothing changes by morning." I smiled gently, for she mistook the silence of the night for inactivity. The night is not inactive, it is invisible. The seed planted tonight does not bloom by dawn, but it begins its silent work at once. She began saying each night, "My subconscious is a storehouse of prosperity. Every word of truth bears fruit." Within weeks, her entire countenance changed. She carried herself with an ease her husband remarked upon. Her voice grew smoother. She no longer rushed through life. She floated. Soon, new channels of income opened, channels she had never considered. She told me, "It feels like the world has softened," and I answered, "It has softened because your inner world has softened." Let me speak plainly. The subconscious is your most powerful ally. When properly instructed, it moves mountains that the conscious mind cannot even budge. When neglected or misdirected, it creates difficulties that seem bewildering and unfair. But the subconscious is never unfair. It is obedient. I have said before that life is a boomerang. Whatever man sends out returns to him. But the subconscious is the curve of that boomerang. It determines the speed, the distance, the trajectory. A decree given to the subconscious at night travels farther and faster than any decree given during the day. For at night, the subconscious is not distracted. It is not resisting. It is not arguing. It receives truth as a seed, and truth, once planted, must bear fruit. Consider how different your life becomes when you fall asleep each night hearing, "You are supplied. You are guided. You are provided for in perfect ways. Divine abundance surrounds you. Every need is met before it arises." Such words do not merely comfort, they construct. They build the unseen framework upon which tomorrow will hang its events. Strangers sense the difference. They feel a calmness about you. They trust you more readily. They speak to you with respect. Even your posture shifts. The weary look leaves your eyes. Your breath deepens. For you are no longer living from the conscious mind alone. You are living from the deep reservoir of the subconscious, filled now with streams of truth instead of pools of fear. I must tell you this. Many people sabotage their prosperity not through their efforts during the day, but through their fears at night. They work diligently, think positively, even pray earnestly, yet fall asleep murmuring lack, and the subconscious hears the murmur louder than the prayer. It hears the fear more clearly than the hope. It takes that fear as instruction and arranges tomorrow accordingly. But when a man learns to direct his subconscious at night, he becomes master of his mornings. When he blesses the night, he blesses the day. When he sows truth in sleep, he reaps prosperity in waking. Here are the words your subconscious longs to hear as you drift into sleep. As I sleep, all that concerns me is placed in divine hands. My subconscious now receives only good. I rest in abundance. I rise in abundance. The Christ within works wonders in my affairs. Say these softly. Say them gently. Say them until the outer world fades and the inner world opens. Say them until the subconscious accepts them with reverence. For tonight is not the end of your day. It is the beginning of your prosperity. And now that you understand the holiness of this hour, we shall move into the next great chamber. The casting out of fear before sleep, the cleansing of the mental house so that prosperity may enter unhindered when you close your eyes. When a man approaches the threshold of sleep, he stands at the doorway of two worlds, the world he has created through fear and the world he may create through faith. Most people carry their burdens with them into the night, as though these burdens were loyal companions. Bills, regrets, conversations replayed in sorrow, imaginings of misfortune, shadows of the past, dread of tomorrow. They lie down, not to rest, but to wrestle. Their minds, instead of releasing the day, hold it tighter. And so they hand their subconscious a bundle of anxieties and whisper, though not in words, "Here, make this my reality." The subconscious, obedient beyond measure, accepts the package and fulfills its contents. But I tell you, no prosperity can take root in a mind that enters sleep weighted with fear. Fear is a false prophet, and when it speaks in the closing moments of the day, it shapes the entire night, and the night shapes the entire tomorrow. This is why I say that before man sleeps, he must cast every burden upon the Christ within, for the Christ is the eternal bearer of all that man is not meant to carry. There was once a woman who came to me with shoulders bent not from physical labor, but from mental burdens. She said, "Mrs. Shinn, every night I lie awake thinking of what might go wrong. I imagine difficulties, and the next day they seem to appear. I feel trapped in a cycle." I replied, "You are not trapped. You are simply rehearsing defeat." I taught her the sacred practice of casting the burden. Each night, I told her, say, "I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free." Say it until you feel the weight lift. She obeyed. On the first night, she felt nothing. On the second night, a faint ease. By the fourth night, she said, "I felt something shift, as though invisible hands took hold of the very fear I had carried for years." And soon, her days began to unfold differently. Problems dissolved before they matured. People who once troubled her became strangely cooperative. She said, "It feels as though life has stopped working against me." And I answered, "Life has never worked against you. Only your fear has." Fear is a tyrant only when unchallenged. Once named, once cast out, fear dissolves like mist under the morning sun. But many cling to their fears as though they were obligations. They say, "If I do not worry, matters will worsen." Yet I have seen that concern does not solve problems, it creates them. Worry is a magnet that draws the very conditions it fears. And so I teach seekers to release the day before sleep, for the night must not be given a burden. The night must be given a blessing. A young man once came to me, trembling beneath the shadow of inherited worry. He had seen his parents suffer financially, and each night he rehearsed their troubles in his own mind. He said, "It is all I know." I told him, "What you know is not what you must keep. You can cast the inherited burden aside." I gave him the affirmation, "There's no loss in divine mind. What appears lost returns in better form." He repeated it each night with earnestness. Soon, he noticed something extraordinary. The visions of disaster that once visited him at bedtime no longer came. His nights became peaceful, and his mornings hopeful. Not long after, a financial matter that he had feared would collapse instead resolved in his favor. He came to me astonished and said, "It happened so easily." And I answered, "When fear leaves, ease enters." Let us consider what truly happens when a person casts their burdens before sleep. The subconscious receives a new instruction. This matter is no longer mine. It is in divine hands. And when the subconscious accepts this, it ceases producing pictures of trouble. It stops replaying arguments. It stops rehearsing old wounds. It stops projecting disaster. Instead, it becomes a quiet field, ready to receive the seeds of prosperity. Others can sense when a person begins casting their burdens consistently. Their face softens. Their breath deepens. Their tone becomes calm, as though they possess a secret reservoir of peace. Their household feels lighter, for the one who sleeps peacefully becomes a source of order and harmony. Even their environment changes. Doors close quietly, light falls gently. The atmosphere itself seems to grow sympathetic to their newfound serenity. One woman said to me, "Mrs. Shinn, my home feels different since I began this practice. Even the walls seem kinder." I said, "The walls reflect your words. A peaceful mind creates a peaceful dwelling." The subconscious influences not only your affairs, but your environment, for environment is but an extension of consciousness. Let me give you a simple metaphor. Imagine that your mind is a house. During the day, visitors come and go. Conversations, errands, responsibilities, disappointments. Some visitors leave pleasant gifts, others leave clutter. But before you sleep, you must sweep the house clean. You must carry out every burden left by the day. For if you leave these burdens scattered through your inner rooms, your subconscious will trip over them through the night. But if you gather them gently and say, "Christ within, take these, they are not mine," then the inner house becomes still, ready for divine presence to enter. A man once confessed to me that he would often fall asleep thinking of a particular person who had wronged him at work. Night after night, he mentally replayed the offense. I told him, "You are inviting that person into your subconscious chambers, and they influence your affairs without ever knowing it. Cast the burden of resentment." I taught him to say, "I forgive this person," and release them to their highest good. At first, he resisted, feeling justified in his resentment. But resentment is poison to prosperity. When he finally released it, something remarkable happened. Not only did his sleep improve, but the co-worker's attitude changed and harmony returned to the workplace. He said, "It is as though she became a different person." But I explained, "She changed because you changed." Casting the burden is not escape. It is spiritual surrender. It is releasing the false belief that you must solve everything in your own strength. The Christ within is the great solver, the great adjuster, the great harmonizer. When you cast a problem upon this inner power, you declare, "I trust the divine to perfect this situation." And sleep becomes an act of faith. Here are the great night affirmations that break the chains of fear. I cast every burden on the Christ within, and I go free. There is no loss in divine mind. I rest in perfect security. Only good comes to me in the morning. My sleep is blessed with peace and protection. Speak these not with strain, but with softness. The subconscious receives whispers more readily than commands. Let me share one more case, for it may mirror your own. A woman, exhausted by years of financial strain, told me, "I fall asleep every night calculating how to escape my difficulties." I said, "You must stop calculating. Calculation is fear's arithmetic. Cast it out." She obeyed, saying each night, "The Christ within is my unfailing supply." Soon, a series of events unfolded, opportunities she never expected, assistance from surprising sources, ideas that bore fruit. She said, "It feels as though heaven rearranged my affairs." And indeed, it had. For heaven rearranges a life when a person stops rehearsing fear and begins resting in truth. Now that the burdens have been lifted and the mind prepared, we move into the sacred mystery of nighttime intuition. How dreams, symbols, and silent impressions guide the seeker toward prosperity while they sleep. When the day's noise has faded and the burdens have been cast upon the Christ within, the subconscious stands like a still pool under the moon, ready to reflect whatever heavenly message is sent across its surface. This is the hour when intuition, that quiet messenger of divine intelligence, begins to speak most clearly. Many people imagine intuition as a sudden flash in the daylight, a hunch, a pull, a whisper. But its deepest and most transformative instructions often arrive while man is asleep. The conscious mind, with all its arguments and objections, has stepped aside, and the subconscious, unobstructed, receives guidance directly. It is in sleep that the soul hears what the waking mind is too noisy to perceive. I have said many times that the subconscious does not create. It obeys. But intuition is different. Intuition is instruction from the divine design of your life. It comes not from memory, nor fear, nor logic, but from the eternal blueprint of your highest good. And during sleep, when consciousness is surrendered, that instruction flows freely. Dreams become letters from the invisible. Impressions become messengers. Even a feeling upon waking can be divine direction. Let me tell you of a woman who sought clarity about her right work. She felt she was in the wrong environment but did not know where to go. She prayed earnestly by day, yet felt no guidance. One evening, I told her, "Your mind is too active during the day to hear. Ask for guidance before sleep when the conscious mind is silent." She prayed simply, "Infinite Spirit, reveal to me my next step." That night, she dreamt of a room filled with books, sunlit, peaceful, orderly. The dream seemed trivial, yet upon waking, she felt drawn to visit a library she had not entered in years. There, she encountered a woman who mentioned a position in a publishing house. The woman applied, was accepted, and flourished. She told me, "It began with the simplest dream." And I answered, "Guidance is always simple. Complication belongs to fear." Another man came to me perplexed by a recurring dream. He saw himself walking down a narrow path, again and again, as though compelled. I told him, "This dream is not a warning, it is a direction. You are being shown the path you must enter." He confessed he had been resisting an inner impulse to explore a new business idea. "It feels too small," he said. "It seems insignificant." Yet intuition rarely begins with grandeur. It begins with a single step. He obeyed the impulse. The idea grew. Investors appeared. Opportunities multiplied. He told me, it was as though the dream insisted until I acted. Indeed, intuition will persist until obedience is given. Dreams are not always literal. Often they speak in symbols, for the subconscious understands imagery more readily than words. A golden key may represent a new opportunity. A door opening may signify right timing. Water may indicate spiritual cleansing. Light may symbolize revelation. I once taught a woman who dreamt repeatedly of climbing a staircase. Each dream left her feeling uplifted. I told her, "Your subconscious is showing you the rise of your consciousness." Not long after, she stepped courageously into a position she had long feared she was unworthy of. The dream had prepared her to accept expansion. Let me speak plainly. Intuition is the divine design revealing itself step by step. And when the conscious mind sleeps, the divine design speaks freely. It may speak through images, through whispers, through inner knowing, through morning impressions, or through sudden clarity upon waking. Guidance does not always come with fanfare. It often comes with gentleness. A man once said to me, "Mrs. Shinn, I wish God would speak more loudly." I replied, "God speaks softly because truth does not need volume. It needs receptivity. Fear shouts, truth whispers. The subconscious, calmed by sleep, hears that whisper. Others will notice when you begin receiving and obeying nighttime guidance. They will see you make decisions with ease that once troubled you. They will observe that you hesitate less, doubt less, Struggle less. Your timing will appear uncanny. Opportunities will seem to present themselves at the perfect moment. People may say you have become lucky, but it is not luck. It is divine coordination. You are walking the magic path of intuition, a path invisible to the untrained eye, but radiant to the awakened soul. One woman came to me saying, "I have begun waking with ideas that feel like gifts." Indeed, they were. She had trained her subconscious to expect guidance, and guidance responded. She no longer pushed for solutions, she received them. Her friends remarked on her clarity. Her family noticed her serenity. The world around her began to shift, for she no longer relied solely on reason. She relied on divine intelligence. Let me offer you a metaphor. Imagine the subconscious as a still lake. When the conscious mind is active, the waters are choppy, reflecting nothing clearly. But during sleep, the waters become smooth as glass. Then, intuition appears upon the surface like the reflection of stars. Guidance from a higher realm mirrored in the depths of your mind. The dream may be quiet, the symbol subtle, the message faint, yet it carries the weight of destiny. Here are the affirmations that open the subconscious to nightly guidance. Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the next step. Even as I sleep, my path is made plain. My dreams instruct me in perfect ways. I obey the quiet inner voice. Speak these before sleep. They summon intuition. They prepare the subconscious to receive direction. You must understand that intuition never leads to confusion. If you feel confusion, you are hearing fear, not spirit. Intuition leads with peace, even if the instruction challenges you. One may dream of letting go of something dearly held, yet feels strangely uplifted. That is intuition. Or one may wake with a sudden knowing. I must write this letter, or I must visit this place, or I must consider this idea. These small directives often open the greatest channels of prosperity. Let me give one final story. A woman who desired financial independence dreamt she was sweeping her porch. Nothing more. But the dream brought a feeling of preparation, of readiness. Upon waking, she felt urged to order her affairs, to clean her desk, settle loose ends, and prepare for something new. That very week, she was offered a partnership in a small business. She told me, it was as if the dream made room for the opportunity, and I said, it did, for intuition always prepares the way. Now that we have entered the sacred realm of night guidance, the next great step is to use the night not only for instruction, but for reconstruction, to plant prosperity pictures in the subconscious with precision, so that your inner world becomes the architect of your outer abundance. When the seeker has quieted the mind, cast out the burdens of fear, and opened the inner ear to intuition, a new and wondrous work begins, the deliberate planting of prosperity pictures in the subconscious. This is the great art of inner creation. For the subconscious does not think in sentences, it thinks in images, symbols, impressions, feelings. Words spoken aloud are translated into pictures within, and these pictures become the molds from which outer conditions are formed. Thus, the night becomes the studio of the soul, where man may paint the scenes he wishes to walk into when the sun returns. Many imagine that their mental pictures arise unbidden and uncontrollable, but this is not so. What man allows to occupy his inner vision is entirely his choice. The subconscious, like soft clay, takes the impressions of the images man holds before it, especially in the hours of sleep when the conscious mind releases its watch. If the seeker goes to bed picturing lack, fear, confusion, or failure, the subconscious molds these pictures into tomorrow's experiences. But if he fills his night with visions of abundance, joy, ease, and fulfillment, the subconscious begins at once to arrange outer events that match the inner design. Let me tell you of a woman who longed for travel but believed it impossible. She would often say, "If only I could go abroad, but such things do not happen for people like me." These words, repeated night after night, formed pictures of denial and limitation. I instructed her to reverse this pattern. "Do not picture the impossibility," I said. "Picture the fulfillment." I asked her to imagine each night that a trunk stood at the foot of her bed, packed, ready for travel. She objected, saying, "I cannot lie to myself." I replied, "You are not lying, you are aligning." She followed the instruction, and soon the picture of the trunk became vivid in her mind. One day, quite unexpectedly, a relative offered to send her abroad, fully at their expense. She said to me afterward, "The moment I saw the trunk in my mind, I felt the journey was already mine." And indeed, the subconscious had accepted the picture long before the outer world revealed it. Another man desired a new position, but felt invisible in his current work. He pictured himself overlooked, and so he was. I told him, "Each night, as you drift into sleep, imagine yourself walking confidently into your rightful office, shaking hands with those who honor your work." He did as I instructed. At first, the picture felt faint, uncertain, unreal. But with repetition, the image grew luminous. Within weeks, the atmosphere at his workplace shifted. Supervisors began treating him with newfound respect. A position opened that seemed tailored for him, and he stepped into it effortlessly. He said, "It was as though my outer life caught up with my inner vision." And that is precisely how the law works. The subconscious does not distinguish between a picture held in the mind and an event lived in the world. Both are equally real to it. This is why bedtime imagining carries such power. The conscious mind, which often argues and doubts, grows drowsy, and the subconscious absorbs images without resistance. Whatever picture holds the emotional charge becomes the blueprint. You may ask, "How do I create these pictures?" And I answer, gently, simply, symbolically. Your images need not be elaborate. A coin that multiplies, a purse that refills, a doorway opening, a table set with abundance, these are enough. The subconscious loves symbols. They speak its language fluently. One woman I taught struggled to imagine wealth directly, for she had only known scarcity. So I instructed her to imagine a lamp constantly filled with oil. This symbol represented supply. Each night she pictured the lamp glowing, bright and steady. Soon her finances improved. Opportunities appeared. The lamp of her subconscious overflowed, and her outer world reflected the inner flame. Another desired harmony in her home, but could not imagine her family behaving differently. I said, "Do not picture their behavior. Picture the atmosphere. Picture soft light, quiet voices, peaceful meals." She followed this instruction, and the change came swiftly. Quarrels ceased. Kindness returned. Her husband said, "It feels different in this house," never knowing that the picture had first changed within his wife. Let us consider how others will perceive you when you begin planting prosperity pictures nightly. They will notice a glow in your countenance, as though you carry an inner lamp. They will sense a silent assurance about you. You will walk with purpose, speak with clarity, and act with poise. People respond to pictures. They cannot see yours, but they feel the vibration of what you hold within. If you picture yourself as prosperous, others treat you as prosperous. If you picture yourself as worthy, others recognize your worth. If you picture yourself as calm, the world mirrors your tranquility. The scriptures are filled with examples of prosperity pictures. When God showed Abraham the stars, he gave him a picture of multiplication. When Joshua beheld the walls of Jericho fallen, the victory was already assured. When Ezekiel saw the valley of dry bones rise, the restoration began with a picture. And so it is with every seeker. He must see inwardly what he wishes to walk into outwardly. Here are sacred affirmations to accompany your nightly imaging. Every picture of abundance shall appear in perfect ways. The divine design of my prosperity is impressed upon my subconscious now. What I see inwardly manifests outwardly under grace. I see only the good, and the good comes. Let me give you a new metaphor. Imagine your subconscious as a great painter. Each night you hand it a blank canvas. If you hand it fear, it paints a storm. If you hand it resentment, it paints chaos. But if you hand it prosperity, it paints abundance. If you hand it peace, it paints harmony. The painter does not choose the subject, you do. A young boy selling programs once told me he imagined every program sold before the game began. He said, "I see myself handing over the last one." He never faltered, even when crowds passed him by. Eventually, people seemed drawn to him, as though compelled to complete the picture he held. He said, "I never once imagined failure." And that is why he succeeded. Another man imagined himself walking with confidence, though he had never felt confident before. He pictured his shoulders lifted, his step steady. Within weeks, others remarked on his presence. They invited him into higher roles. He told me, "I simply held the picture until it felt natural." And the picture became his reality. Before sleep tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and the veil between worlds thins, hold a picture that delights your soul. Let it be simple, joyful, radiant. Picture a table set with plenty. Picture a letter bearing good news. Picture yourself receiving praise, respect, or an opportunity. Picture money flowing toward you with ease. Picture a peaceful home, harmonious surroundings, or a path opening before you. For the picture you take into sleep becomes the life you wake into. Now that the subconscious has been filled with images of prosperity, we must speak of the words that give these pictures power. The decrees that return, multiplied. The spoken truth that shapes the unseen realm. This brings us to the mighty boomerang law of words. There is a law woven so deeply into the fabric of creation that no man can escape it, though many remain unaware of its quiet dominion. I have called it the boomerang law of words, for every word man sends forth returns to him multiplied, sometimes swiftly, sometimes slowly, but always with unwavering accuracy. Words are not mere sounds, they are spiritual forces. They travel into the unseen, shaping substance, forming conditions, summoning opportunities or obstacles according to their nature. And when spoken at night, as the last commands given before the subconscious takes full authority, they carry 10 times their usual power. I have often said that man's word is his wand. A wand directs energy with precision. A word directs the law with equal certainty. When a seeker learns to use his word wisely before sleep, he turns the night into a workshop of miracles. When he misuses his word, he fills the night with confusion, and confusion greets him at dawn. Most people do not understand why their troubles seem to repeat themselves. They believe in unlucky streaks, unfortunate patterns, or inherited misfortune. But I tell you plainly, many of their difficulties return simply because their words return. They speak lack, and lack circles back. They speak fear, and fear returns. They speak defeat, and defeat finds its way home. Words never fall to the ground. They take root in the subconscious and sprout in the affairs of the seeker. Let me tell you of a woman who came to me bewildered by the persistence of her financial hardship. She said, "Mrs. Shinn, I tithe, I pray, I work diligently, Yet money slips through my fingers like water. I asked her, "What do you say each night before sleep?" She sighed and replied, "I always say, I hope I make it through another month." I answered gently, "My dear, you are commanding the universe to keep you near the edge. Your word has held you there." I instructed her to replace this fearful phrase with, "I expect the unexpected. My immediate and endless supply now appears." She obeyed. Within days, small sums arrived unexpectedly. Within weeks, a long-delayed payment came. Within months, she stood on firm ground. She told me, "It feels as though money has stopped avoiding me." And I said, "It did not avoid you. Your words pushed it away." Another man complained, "I never get opportunities. Others move ahead, yet I remain behind." I asked him what he declared about himself. He answered, "I often say I am overlooked." I said, "Then you are overlooked by your own decree?" The subconscious treats every statement as instruction. If he had said, "I am always in the right place at the right time," his affairs would have arranged themselves accordingly. He began saying this very line each night, and within a short time, a new opportunity arose, a position he had long desired. Made possible only because a superior remarked, "You have been on my mind lately." His word had placed him there. The spoken word is not a suggestion, it is a command. And the night is the hour when commands are written in bold strokes upon the inner tablet. Consider how others perceive the one who has mastered their nightly word. Their speech carries authority. Their presence feels grounded. They seem to move through life as one who expects good and receives it. People listen more closely to them. They attract opportunities, goodwill, and favor. Their voice takes on a tone of serenity, free from complaint or doubt. Those around them remark, "You speak differently these days," without realizing that this difference has reshaped the speaker's destiny. Let me share another story. A woman burdened by illness once told me she fell asleep each night, saying, "I am so tired. I do not know how much more I can bear." I said, "You are sending exhaustion into the night and waking into its harvest." I taught her to replace these words with, "The life of the Spirit flows through me as health and strength." She repeated the words faithfully before sleep. Soon her energy returned. Her face brightened. Her very posture changed. She said, "It feels as though something lifted me from within." It had her own word. Here are the great decrees that reshape a seeker's night and therefore their life. My word is my wand. It creates my good as I sleep. Every decree returns to me multiplied in perfect ways. I speak abundance into the night, and abundance answers. All that I say with faith becomes law in my subconscious. Words spoken at night must be chosen with reverence. They are not idle phrases. They are seeds planted in the most fertile soil. If a man says, "I cannot afford it," he plants poverty. If he says, "Everything works out for me," he plants success. If he says, "I am surrounded by lack," he plants barrenness. But if he says, "I prosper wherever I turn," prosperity becomes inevitable. The subconscious does not argue, it fulfills. Allow me to give you a metaphor. Imagine the spoken word as an arrow. During the day, the arrow must fight wind and weather, doubt, distraction, noise, fear. But at night, the air is still. The arrow flies straight. If you speak a word of fear at night, it reaches its target swiftly. If you speak a word of truth, it pierces every obstacle before it. Night decrees penetrate deeply. Another seeker once told me that she often fell asleep muttering, "I am so overwhelmed." I told her, "You will wake overwhelmed as long as that is your final decree." She replaced it with, I rest in the divine order that governs my life. Soon her days became orderly, her tasks manageable, her affairs smooth. She did not change her workload, she changed her word. The scriptures speak often of the power of words. Let there be light was not followed by effort, it was followed by light. The centurion said, "Speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed." And the healing took place in that instant. These stories are not relics of ancient times. They are demonstrations of unchanging law. Man speaks, and the universe obeys. Before sleep tonight, ask yourself, what shall I command? What word shall I send forth? What decree shall I plant in the rich soil of my subconscious? For what you speak tonight will walk toward you tomorrow. Now that your word has been trained to shape prosperity, we must address the divine mechanism by which supply arrives. The magic purse of the spirit, the source of endless provision that opens most readily while the seeker sleeps. There is a secret reservoir of abundance that surrounds every soul, a storehouse of supply so vast, so immediate, so responsive, that if man truly understood it, he would never fear money again. Florence Scovel Shinn called this reservoir the magic purse of the spirit, for it is a purse that cannot empty, a fountain that never dries, a treasury that refills itself with every act of faith. Yet most people walk through life clutching a tiny earthly purse, believing that their livelihood depends on wages, circumstances, or human favor. They forget that supply does not come from these channels, but through them. And the night, oh, the sacred night, is the hour when this invisible purse opens widest, when the conscious mind grows still and the subconscious becomes receptive. The channels of supply begin to multiply. Ideas for increase float into the mind like feathers upon a breeze. New opportunities gather at the edges of consciousness, waiting to be seen. Forgotten resources rise to the surface. People remember you. Payments appear. Avenues once closed begin to shift open. The magic purse responds when you sleep in the vibration of plenty instead of want. Let me tell you of a woman who lived in constant fear that her money would not stretch far enough. She counted every purchase with trembling fingers. Each night, she whispered, "I am afraid I'll fall short." Her subconscious heard this and formed a law. Shortage must persist. When she came to me, I told her, "You are blessing your purse with lack. Reverse the decree, and the purse will reverse its behavior." I taught her to hold her purse in her hands each night and say, "The magic purse of the spirit is full and overflowing. It can never be depleted." At first, she felt foolish. The purse in her hands contained little. Yet she persisted. Soon, refunds appeared. Money long owed returned. A small inheritance surfaced unexpectedly. She came to me radiant and said, "It is as though my purse has a mind of its own." And I replied, "It does, the mind of your subconscious, now aligned with truth." Another man, weary from years of financial constraint, told me he felt blocked, as though some invisible hand prevented his prosperity. I asked him, "What do you say about money?" He answered, "I often say money is difficult." I said, "Then money becomes difficult by your command." I taught him to say each night as he drifted to sleep, "Every avenue of supply is open to me. I receive in abundant measure, under grace." In less than a month, he received an opportunity he had prayed for silently, but never dared expect. Then another, and another. He told me, "It is as if the channels multiplied overnight." Indeed they had, because his subconscious accepted a truth it had never known. The subconscious is the steward of your magic purse. It controls the flow of supply with the precision of a great treasurer. If it receives fear, it tightens the purse. If it receives faith, it opens the purse. If it receives doubt, it slows the flow. If it receives truth, it increases the flow. Supply obeys consciousness. Let me speak plainly. Money is not a material problem. It is a mental pattern. When the pattern changes, the purse fills. When the pattern remains bound in fear, the purse empties. During sleep, the old pattern dissolves most easily, and the new pattern takes root most deeply. This is why nighttime decrees of abundance transform affairs so swiftly. Consider the widow in Scripture whose oil multiplied. She did not strain or calculate. She simply obeyed instruction, and the oil flowed until every vessel was full. This is the perfect picture of the magic purse. Supply multiplying when one opens the vessel of consciousness. Or consider the loaves and fishes. Christ blessed what he had, and it expanded beyond measure. Blessing is multiplication. Fear is contraction. Whatever you bless increases. Whatever you fear decreases. This is not poetry, it is law. Let me give another case. A seamstress once told me her income fluctuated like the tides, up one week, down the next. She said, "I feel my purse leaks." I told her, "Your purse leaks because your words puncture it." She admitted she often said, "Business is unpredictable." I instructed her to replace this with, "My supply is steady, constant, and dependable. It flows to me from all directions." She began saying this each night before sleep. Soon, clients appeared who returned again and again. Commissions increased. Her purse no longer leaked. It overflowed. Others will notice when your magic purse opens. They will feel a new stability in your presence. They may say, "You look lighter," or "Something has changed about you," without realizing they are responding to the vibration of plenty now radiating from your consciousness. People are drawn to those who are inwardly supplied. They trust them, seek them out, recommend them. Prosperity attracts prosperity. Let me offer a new metaphor. Imagine the magic purse as a well. During the day, you draw water from it. At night, as you sleep in faith, unseen springs refill it from beneath. If you sleep in fear, the springs dry up. But if you bless the purse and speak abundance into your inner world, the springs surge with new force. Here are the sacred affirmations that fill the magic purse. The magic purse of the Spirit is now filled and refilled for me. Every channel of good is open. Nothing can obstruct my supply. My abundance flows freely, steadily, and without delay. All that is mine by divine right now reaches me. Say these as you settle into sleep. Let them sink beneath consciousness. Let them become the law of your subconscious world. Within days, you will feel a shift, perhaps subtle, perhaps dramatic, but unmistakably real. Now that the channels of supply have been opened through the night, we come to the culmination of this great inner work. Waking into the promised land of your subconscious prosperity, living each day as one who has rewritten their destiny from within. There comes a dawn, quiet, unannounced, unforced, when a seeker who has tended the inner garden through the night wakes not as who they were, but as who they have become. This is the moment when prosperity, long prepared in the silence of the subconscious, begins to rise into the light of day. It is subtle at first, like the faintest warmth before sunrise. Then it grows, steady and unmistakable, until it fills the seeker's whole life with new atmosphere, new expectation, new identity. This is what it means to wake into the promised land. To open your eyes each morning and find that the inner work has called forth an outer world that matches it. When a man sleeps in fear, he wakes into fear. But when he sleeps in truth, he wakes into supply. The subconscious, having labored faithfully through the silent hours, begins to reveal its work. Problems untangle, Burdens ease, paths clear. People respond differently. There is a softness in the air, a brightness in the face, a calm that cannot be traced to any outward cause. It is the calm of a consciousness aligned with divine order. Many seekers do not realize that morning is the report card of the night. If you wake clenched and tense, fear was your final decree. If you wake expectant and light, truth has written its law upon your mind. When nighttime has been used wisely, the morning becomes effortless. The day unfolds with harmony. Let me tell you of a man who, after weeks of falling asleep to prosperity affirmations, began waking with a sensation he could not explain. "It feels," he said, "as though the day is already arranged for my good." And indeed it was. He found himself reaching places at perfect timing, doors opening just as he arrived, people greeting him with warmth. His business affairs smoothed as though an invisible hand guided every interaction. He told me, astonished, "It's as if the world is cooperating with me." I replied, "The world always cooperates with the consciousness that aligns with divine order." Another woman, once fearful of mornings, found herself waking with serenity. She said, "Where I once felt dread, I now feel readiness." Her family noticed immediately. Her children said, "You smile in the morning now." Her husband remarked that she walked through the house with a grace she had never possessed. This is the great transformation. Others see the change even before the seeker fully understands it. Consider the Israelites wandering the wilderness. Their promised land did not appear suddenly. It was prepared within them long before they stepped into it. The promised land is a state of consciousness, not a geographical location. The moment you release fear, cast burdens, listen to intuition, plant prosperity pictures, speak truth, and open the magic purse, you enter your promised land inwardly. And when the inner promised land is realized, the outer one must appear. Let me offer a simple but powerful truth. You cannot hold prosperity within and lack without. Sooner or later, the outer world will conform to the inner decree. A man who sees himself prosperous cannot remain poor. A woman who sees herself worthy cannot remain overlooked. A seeker who sleeps in abundance must wake into new avenues of supply. Another case comes to mind. A merchant, troubled by declining sales, began listening to prosperity words at night. He told me, "I did nothing different during the day, yet my sales increased." I answered, "You did something far greater. You changed your consciousness." He had entered the promised land inwardly, and his business followed. When you step into this consciousness, others treat you differently. They sense stability, confidence, ease. They begin offering assistance unasked. They bring opportunities instead of obstacles. They open their hearts, their networks, their goodwill. People are drawn to the one who has awakened in truth. They may not know why they trust you, why they admire you, why they believe in your ventures, but they do. For the vibration of inner wealth cannot remain concealed. It radiates. Let us consider the scriptural truth. Joy comes in the morning. This does not mean that joy waits for sunrise. It means that joy appears after the night has done its work. The manna in the wilderness lay hidden until dawn. Christ rose while it was yet dark, signifying that the greatest victories are prepared in the unseen before they appear in the visible. And so it is with your prosperity. It rises quietly, invisibly, while your conscious mind rests. Here are the great affirmations that seal your waking consciousness. I rise into my divine supply. As within, so without, my prosperity now appears. This day unfolds under grace and in perfect ways. I walk in my promised land with praise and expectancy. Speak these upon waking. Speak them as declarations, not hopes. Speak them as one who has already crossed the inner Jordan. Let me give one last story. A woman who feared mornings so deeply that she often delayed rising. Her first thoughts were always of problems, failures, lacks. But after committing herself to 2 hours of nightly prosperity installation, she woke one morning and said, "It feels different today." She could not explain the feeling, only that she sensed ease where tension had lived. That very day, she received word of a financial blessing she had long awaited. Her affairs began unfolding in a rhythm she had never known. She said, "It feels as though the morning itself brought supply." And I said, "It did, for you slept in truth, and truth has answered." This is the promise. When your subconscious is filled with prosperity, your outer world cannot help but obey. Conditions rearrange themselves, opportunities gather, solutions appear. The promised land becomes not a distant dream, but a daily atmosphere. And now, beloved seeker, you stand fully within the circle of truth. You have learned to prepare the night, purify the mind, receive intuition, plant prosperity pictures, speak powerful decrees, open the magic purse, and rise each morning as one favored by divine order. If you wish, we may now continue into refinement, how to maintain this consciousness for a lifetime, how to protect it from old fears, how to let abundance flow without resistance. There is a reason you feel the pressure you feel. There is a reason you dream bigger than the people around you. There is a reason abundance calls to you even when your circumstances say otherwise. It is because you were chosen. Chosen to break the pattern. Chosen to rewrite the story of your lineage. Chosen to become the first millionaire in your family. Do not dismiss that sentence. Your spirit reacted to it because it recognizes truth long before the mind does. The desire for prosperity did not begin with you. It began with the generations before you who prayed for a deliverer, someone who would rise high enough to lift the entire family line with them. When heaven chooses someone for financial increase, it does not choose the comfortable. It chooses the hungry. It chooses the one who has tasted lack and refuses to pass it on. It chooses the one who cannot bear to see their children repeat their own fears. It chooses the one willing to stand alone while the old pattern dies. Ask yourself, why did you survive things others did not? Why were you given dreams others cannot see? Why does the idea of wealth feel both terrifying and familiar? Because wealth is not merely money to you, it is assignment. Now let me take you into a moment you have experienced but never named. You sit in a quiet room, bills on the table, a knot in your stomach. Yet behind the fear, there is a strange knowing. I was not meant to live like this. That knowing is not arrogance. It is memory. Memory of the path heaven designed for you before you ever stepped into this world. But here is the danger. If you ignore this calling, if you repeat the language of limitation, if you allow fear to speak louder than truth, you will not only delay your own prosperity, you will prolong the struggle of every soul tied to your lineage, because the chain breaks with you, or it does not break at all. Let me paint the picture of what happens when a chosen one refuses the call. 10 years pass, and nothing changes. Opportunities appear, but they feel too big. Money touches your hands, but slips away because you speak against it. Dreams shrink to the size of your doubts, and the abundance assigned to you flows to someone else who is willing to claim it. But imagine the opposite. Imagine hearing this message and recognizing it as confirmation. Imagine realizing your desire for wealth is not greed, it is genetic prophecy. You are the one your ancestors prayed for, the one divine order appointed, the one capable of carrying the blessing without losing yourself. Now pause. Breathe. Feel the weight of your calling. A woman once told me she feared wanting wealth. She believed it was unspiritual. I told her, "Your desire is not hunger for money. It is hunger for freedom." She embraced that truth, and within a year her income multiplied in ways she could not have planned. Not because she worked harder, but because she aligned with her assignment. You must understand this. Wealth is not created by labor alone. Wealth is created by consciousness. If you do not rise in consciousness, you cannot rise in income. But when your consciousness expands, when you speak abundance instead of fear, when you expect supply instead of shortage, when you claim your divine inheritance, wealth rushes toward you as if recognizing its rightful owner. Let me show you the stakes. If you refuse to claim your calling, the next generation will live the same life you are trying to escape. If you claim it, you will change the trajectory of your family for 100 years. Let me give you another scene. You are walking through your home, tired from a long day. The air feels heavy, the future uncertain. But then, for a split second, you see a different life. A life where money does not frighten you, where every need is met before it arrives, where you bless others instead of calculating survival. That glimpse is not fantasy, it is prophecy. Now listen closely. You were chosen because you are courageous. Most people cling to the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. But you feel the pull of something larger, something higher, something freer. You are willing to walk into the unknown if it means breaking the pattern for good. A man once came to me feeling unworthy of wealth. He said, "No one in my family has ever prospered." I looked at him and said, "That is because they were waiting for you." Within months of embracing that truth, he stepped into opportunities that had been invisible before. His entire energy changed, and life answered that energy. So let me speak directly to your spirit. You are not seeking wealth. Wealth is seeking you. It has been circling your life for years, waiting for you to speak the decree that gives it permission to enter. Say within yourself, "I am chosen for prosperity. My path is guided. My supply is unlimited." Say it until your subconscious believes it. Say it until fear dissolves. Say it until your hands begin to receive what your spirit always knew was yours. But hear this warning. If you treat this message casually, if you let your old doubts choke it out, you will miss the very moment heaven has appointed for your rise. And heaven is generous, but it is also precise. When destiny knocks, you must answer. Now imagine the next 90 days of your life. Imagine choosing your words carefully. Imagine expecting abundance. Imagine blessing every bill that arrives. Imagine speaking only what aligns with your divine inheritance. Imagine walking with the posture of someone who knows they were chosen. How would your life look? How would your family's future look? How many chains would snap at your feet? Because the truth is this: a chosen person cannot live an ordinary life. No matter how hard they try, heaven keeps interrupting them. Synchronicities appear. Opportunities reemerge. Ideas pull at them. Something always whispers, "You are meant for more." You have felt that whisper your entire life. Now it speaks louder. Now it calls you forward. Now it asks for your agreement. So listen deeply, as one who understands that this message is not random. As one who knows their lineage is waiting. As one who senses that destiny is closer than fear. Because you were chosen. You are chosen still. And the moment you agree with that truth, wealth begins its journey toward you. When a soul awakens to the stirring of a great destiny, It seldom arrives with fanfare. It arrives quietly, like a soft knocking at the door of consciousness. And many people, untrained in spiritual hearing, mistake that knocking for anxiety, ambition, restlessness, or even fear. But I tell you plainly, when you feel the uneasy pressure to rise, when your dreams stretch beyond the dreams of those around you, when you sense that your life is meant to outgrow its present boundaries, you are not imagining things. You are remembering something. You are remembering that long before you entered this world, a decree was spoken over your life, one that set you apart as the one who would break the pattern of lack that has held your family for generations. You were chosen not because you were the strongest, nor the most qualified, nor the most confident, but because you were the one willing to feel the discomfort of growth. You were the one whose heart could not tolerate seeing the same cycle repeat endlessly. You were the one who said, though perhaps only in spirit, "This stops with me." I have met many such people in my life, people who carried within them a strange combination of fear and calling. They feared more than others, yet they were drawn to more than others. They felt life pressing upon them, urging them to rise, even when nothing in their outer world suggested they could. They lived between two realities, the one they saw and the one they sensed. And I would tell them, as I tell you now, the life you sense is the true life. The wealth you glimpse in your quietest moments, the life of ease, freedom, generosity, and abundance, is not fantasy. It is prophecy. It is the memory of your divine design calling you forward. There was once a young man who sat across from me with a heavy countenance. He said, "Mrs. Shinn, I do not know why I dream so big when everyone around me is content with so little. It feels like a curse." I smiled, for I knew his soul had been chosen. "It is not a curse," I told him. "It is a calling. Those who are chosen feel dissatisfied with anything less than divine abundance, for their spirit remembers what they came to accomplish." At that moment, something in his expression shifted. His eyes cleared. His shoulders lifted. He had expected me to rebuke him for his ambition, but instead I blessed it. Ambition driven by ego collapses, but ambition born of divine assignment is indestructible. Let me tell you another story. A woman once came to me burdened with the belief that her desire for prosperity was unspiritual. She said, "Shouldn't I be content with what I have? Is it wrong to long for more?" I told her gently, "My dear, the desire for wealth is not a desire for money. It is a desire for expansion. It is your soul's protest against limitation. It is your memory of freedom." She wept when she heard this, for it was the first time anyone had affirmed her longing instead of shaming it. She left my studio that day walking taller. Within 3 months, she received an unexpected opportunity that multiplied her income. Not because she worked harder, no, she worked aligned. Alignment always brings increase. The soul cannot flourish in a pattern it has outgrown. You see, the chosen ones are often the ones who have tasted lack the most deeply. They know its cold shadow. They know the ache of limitation. They know what it is to worry, to stretch, to fear. But they also know, deeply, stubbornly, that this cannot be all there is. They hold within them a secret certainty that life is meant to be larger, richer, freer. This certainty is not wishful thinking. It is the echo of divine memory. In Scripture, those chosen for greatness were seldom the obvious ones. Joseph was betrayed and imprisoned before rising to feed nations. David was tending sheep when called to kingship. Gideon was hiding from his enemies when he was hailed as a mighty man of valor. God does not choose the comfortable. God chooses the hungry, those who cannot bear to see cycles repeat, those who feel compelled to rise even when they cannot explain why. And you, dear listener, were chosen in exactly this way. I want you to examine something quietly within yourself. Think of all the times you felt pressured by life, pressured to do more, become more, rise higher. Think of the times you felt different in your family, the one who dreamed bigger, questioned more, reached further. Think of the strange sense of destiny you have carried since childhood, the feeling that you were meant for something unusual, something significant. This is not fantasy. This is spiritual memory. Your soul remembers the decree spoken over your life. I knew a man who felt this calling all his life, but feared it because he believed himself unworthy. He said, "No one in my family has prospered. Who am I to break the pattern?" And I answered him with clarity, "You are the only one who can break it precisely because you are the only one who feels the burden of it. Your discomfort is the sign of your assignment." Something awakened in him that day. He began to speak differently. He stopped calling himself unlucky. He stopped minimizing his dreams. He began declaring boldly, "I am guided. I am chosen. I am prosperous." And life responded swiftly. Opportunities appeared where he had once seen only walls. People who had overlooked him suddenly took notice. Within a year, he earned more than he had earned in the previous 3 combined. And he said to me, "It feels as though life was waiting for me to accept myself." Indeed it was. There is a moment in every chosen person's journey when fear and calling collide. Fear says, "Stay where you are. You know this place." Calling says, "Rise. You were not created for this smallness." Fear says, "Do not risk anything. It is too dangerous." Calling says, "If you stay here, your soul will shrink." And fear, though loud, cannot overpower the whisper of destiny. The whisper returns again and again, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in sudden moments of clarity, sometimes in the ache of dissatisfaction. And if you ignore it, life becomes heavy. But when you obey it, life becomes spacious. Let me speak plainly. You did not imagine your calling. You inherited it. Your ancestors, those who struggled, those who scraped, those who lived their whole lives under the shadow of financial fear, prayed for someone who would break the chain, someone who would rise high enough to change the lineage, someone whose consciousness could accept abundance and pass it forward. You are the answer to those prayers. You are the one heaven selected to break the cycle. When a person begins to accept this, their entire identity shifts. They begin to see themselves not as victims of circumstance, but as heirs of divine inheritance. They walk differently. They speak differently. Their eyes carry a new light. Others sense the change and respond to it. Even their environment begins to rearrange itself, preparing the way for demonstrations of wealth. But here is the crucial truth. You must accept the calling. Heaven will not force prosperity upon an unwilling consciousness. Wealth must be claimed. Abundance must be spoken. You must decree, "I am chosen for prosperity. My path is guided. My supply is unlimited." Say it again and again until every cell of your being vibrates with its truth. Your subconscious must be trained to accept your assignment, for the subconscious is the silent engine that drives all manifestation. Let me show you something. Imagine yourself standing in a long line of your family's history, those who came before you and those who will come after. Behind you, weary faces. Ahead of you, faces not yet born. You are the hinge. You are the turning point. If you break the chain of lack, everyone after you walks free. If you refuse your calling, The pattern repeats. This is why your desire is not selfish. It is sacred. Your wealth is not for you alone. It is for the freedom of generations. A chosen person cannot live an ordinary life. Life keeps interrupting them. Synchronicities appear. Opportunities reemerge. Ideas tug at their sleeves. A quiet voice whispers, "There is more. Rise higher. Step forward." You have heard this whisper many times. You are hearing it now. And so I say to you, let this be the moment you agree with heaven. Let this be the moment you stop doubting your calling. Let this be the moment you say, I am chosen to break the pattern. I am chosen to rise. I am chosen to prosper. For the moment you accept this truth, wealth begins its journey toward you. And now, having awakened your memory of being chosen, we must break the old pattern of lack that has followed your family line for generations. When you are ready, we shall proceed. There is an unseen inheritance that every family passes down, not in coins, not in property, not in written wills, but in words, in fears, in expectations, in silent agreements about what is possible and what is not. These unspoken legacies shape the consciousness of each new generation, and unless someone rises to break the pattern, the same limitations repeat themselves like a story told too many times. When you look honestly at your lineage, you may see a thread that runs through it. Perhaps fear of not having enough, fear of losing what little exists, fear of stepping beyond familiar boundaries. Some families carry the belief that money is hard, or wealth is for other people, or we just get by. These ideas settle into the subconscious like old furniture stored in the attic. They remain there until someone with spiritual courage chooses to cast them out. You are that someone. The reason you feel the pressure you feel is because you were born to end the pattern, not repeat it. You were chosen to turn the tide, to rewrite the narrative of your lineage, to release every generational fear that has whispered through the years. But release does not happen by accident. It happens by intention. It happens by decree. It happens through the sacred act Florence Scovel Shinn called casting the burden, placing every inherited fear, every old belief, every limitation upon the Christ within, and refusing to carry it another day. A woman once came to me burdened by a fear that had plagued her for as long as she could remember. She said, "In my family, something always goes wrong with money. Every time we come close to rising, something collapses." She believed her destiny was chained to this pattern. I told her, "My dear, you have been honoring a false prophecy. The pattern was never yours. You inherited it, and you have the right to dissolve it." I taught her to say, "I cast this burden of lack on the Christ within, and I go free." She repeated it diligently. Something remarkable happened. The old fear, which had clung to her like a shadow, loosened its grip. She found herself expecting good where she once expected loss. Others noticed the difference. Her children remarked that she seemed lighter. Her co-workers commented on her newfound confidence. And as her inner world shifted, her outer world followed. A raise came, a debt resolved, an opportunity appeared. She said, "I feel as though my family's story broke open." And indeed, she had broken it. Let me give you another case to make this law plain. A man once told me that poverty had haunted his family for generations. "My parents struggled, their parents struggled," he said. "We do not seem to have the fortune other families have." I told him, "Fortune is not hereditary, but consciousness is. You have inherited their thought forms, but thought forms are shadows. The light of truth dissolves them instantly." I gave him the affirmation, "There is no loss in divine mind, Therefore, I cannot lose. He practiced it each morning. At first, he felt nothing, but repetition impresses the subconscious, and soon his entire disposition changed. He relaxed. He smiled more. He walked with a certainty unfamiliar to him. People responded to this shift. His employer entrusted him with more responsibility, and within months, he stepped into a position that doubled his income. When he returned to see me, he said, "I feel free from something I did not even know was binding me." That is the effect of casting generational burdens. You must realize, your family's fears are not your fate. They have shaped your consciousness, yes, but consciousness is clay in your hands. You can mold it anew. You can speak a different word. You can create a new mental picture so powerful that it becomes the blueprint of your entire future. The moment you say, "This pattern ends with me," heaven hears you. And the old pattern, which once felt immovable, begins to dissolve like mist before the morning sun. People often believe they are fighting outer circumstances, when in truth, they are wrestling with inherited inner pictures. These pictures whisper things like, "We are not meant for wealth," or "Someone like me could never prosper," or "Money always slips away." These pictures must be broken. They must be cast upon the Christ within, for the Christ within holds the divine design for your life, a design untouched by your family's fears. Let me paint another case. A young woman, modest and gentle, came to me with the belief that no one in her family had ever achieved financial stability, and therefore she would not either. She said, "Mrs. Shinn, I feel as though there is an invisible ceiling over me." I answered, "There is, but you created it through expectation, and expectation can be reversed." I taught her to affirm, "What God has done for others, He now does for me and more." She spoke this faithfully. Soon she found herself presented with an offer that required courage. Her family advised her against it, fearing risk. But her newfound spiritual clarity guided her to accept. The offer led to work that brought her joy, fulfillment, and financial ease beyond anything she had known. She later told me, "My mother said she never imagined this life was possible." And I said, "It was always possible. Someone merely needed to open the door." Let us consider how the world sees you once you begin breaking patterns. People who once doubted, you now watch you with a kind of curiosity. Your confidence unsettles their old expectations. Your calmness surprises them. They notice your speech has changed. You no longer speak in the dialect of fear. Your presence grows steadier. Your choices reflect purpose. Even your posture shifts. A person breaking a generational pattern carries an unmistakable air of authority, a quiet assurance that life must obey them because they now obey divine law. Biblical stories illustrate this truth beautifully. When the Israelites left Egypt, they walked out not only from bondage, but from the mental picture of bondage. They cast the burden. They stepped into a new identity, one that required courage, obedience, and a willingness to walk by faith rather than sight. When Joshua commanded the people to shout and the walls of Jericho fell, he performed the metaphysical act of dissolving old structures through sound, through decree. And you must do the same with the walls of lack in your lineage. These walls are not physical, they are vibrational, and they fall when you speak the right word. Here are the affirmations that break generational patterns most effectively. I cast the burden of lack on the Christ within, and I go free. Every false pattern is dissolved. The divine pattern now appears. There is no loss in divine mind. I inherit only good. The chain ends with me. The blessing begins with me. Speak them morning and night. Speak them until your inner world shifts. Speak them until your subconscious accepts them as the new blueprint of your life. Let me give you a metaphor to hold. Imagine your family line as a long corridor. Each generation walked a certain path because the door to abundance seemed locked. But now you have the key. When you insert it, when you speak your decree, the door opens. And everything behind you changes, because everything ahead of you changes. Now that the burdens of your lineage have been lifted, the next great force begins to stir. The magic path of intuition, ready to guide you toward the channels of wealth prepared for you. When you are ready, we shall walk onto that holy path together. When a person has cast off the heavy garments of inherited fear, something wondrous happens within them. Intuition awakens. It rises like a soft dawn in the consciousness, illuminating steps that were previously hidden, revealing openings where the mind once saw walls, whispering directions that seem small at first, yet lead to great demonstration. And I tell you plainly, no one becomes the first millionaire in their family without walking the magic path of intuition. For intuition is divine intelligence speaking to you in the language of suggestion, impulse, and quiet certainty. It is the shepherd guiding the soul toward its rightful field of abundance. Many people ignore intuition because they expect it to arrive with thunder or certainty. They expect a command, a revelation, a dramatic sign. But spirit seldom moves that way. The divine whispers, never shouts. Intuition is the gentle tug, the inward nudge, the sense that you ought to go here instead of there. Speak to this person. Write that letter. Revise that idea. Take that step. These impressions seem insignificant to the untrained mind, but to the spiritually awakened consciousness, they are the stepping stones of destiny. Let me tell you of a young woman who once sat before me, frustrated because she felt she was making no progress in her finances. She prayed for opportunity, affirmed prosperity, cast her burdens faithfully, yet nothing seemed to move. I asked her, "Have you listened to the quiet voice within?" She looked puzzled and said, "I hear nothing." I told her, "You hear, but you do not recognize." I invited her to sit in silence each morning and ask, "Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the next step." She agreed. Within days, she felt an inexplicable urge to reorganize her workspace. She resisted at first, thinking it trivial, but intuition persisted. When she finally obeyed, she discovered old sketches tucked away in a drawer, ideas she had forgotten. These sketches reignited a passion she had set aside. Within a month, she sold her first commissioned piece. Within a year, her small creative work had grown into a thriving business. She said, "It all began with a whisper, a simple urge to tidy a drawer." And I answered, "Spirit always begins with the small. The small leads to the great." Another man I taught felt unsettled at his job. He longed for change, but feared making the wrong move. Every morning he affirmed, "Infinite Spirit, open the way for my right work." One day, as he walked to the train, he felt compelled to take a different route. It made no sense, yet the inward tug was unmistakable. He obeyed. On that unfamiliar street, he encountered an old acquaintance who mentioned an opportunity in a field he had long admired from afar. Within weeks, he stepped into that role, one that brought him fulfillment and financial expansion. He told me, "It felt as though I stumbled into it." And I replied, "You did not stumble. You followed the lamp." The magic path of intuition is like a lantern lighting only the next few feet. You cannot see the entire journey because the entire journey is not needed at once. If Spirit showed you the full pattern, you would run ahead or shrink back in fear. So it reveals only the next step, just enough to keep you aligned with your destiny. Your part is not to question, but to obey. When intuition speaks, it speaks with peace, even when it challenges you. Let us examine for a moment how others see the one who walks by intuition. They move with a certainty that defies logic. They seem to be at the right place at the right time again and again. Opportunities find them. People trust them, sensing an invisible guidance at their shoulder. Even their mistakes lead to blessings, for intuition governs not only the straight path but the winding one. When someone asks them how they knew to act, they often say, "Something told me." That something is infinite intelligence. Consider the wise men who followed the star. They did not know where it would lead. They simply obeyed the light given to them. Or think of Noah, instructed to build before a drop of rain had fallen. Or Elijah, guided to the brook Cherith. In each case, intuition preceded evidence. So it must be with you. The chosen one moves before the outer world gives confirmation. A woman once said to me, "Mrs. Shinn, I cannot trust my intuition. I have been wrong before." I replied, "You were not wrong. You simply mistook desire, fear, or habit for intuition." True intuition never feels frantic, pressured, or unstable. It arrives with quiet assurance, even when it leads into unfamiliar territory. It is like stepping onto a stone you cannot yet see, but somehow know is there. Here are the affirmations that strengthen the intuition of one chosen for prosperity. Infinite Spirit, reveal the next step. I walk the magic path of intuition. What is mine cannot miss me. What misses me was never mine. I hear clearly, I obey instantly, and I prosper under grace. Repeat them daily. They open the inner ear. They place your consciousness in readiness for divine instruction. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine your intuition as a thread of gold woven into the fabric of your life. When you pull gently upon it, through prayer, silence, or affirmation, the entire tapestry shifts. Doors open, circumstances rearrange, people appear. What once seemed impossible materializes through channels the intellect could never conceive. A man once found himself repeatedly nudged to review an old idea he had abandoned. He dismissed the thought each time until the nudge grew persistent. Finally, he revisited the idea, improved it slightly, and shared it with a friend. That friend shared it with a business partner. Within 3 months, the idea became a prosperous enterprise. He said, "If I had ignored that inner tug, I would still be struggling." And I said, "Intuition is the divine messenger. When ignored, blessings remain dormant." Do not expect intuition to flatter your fears. It may lead you towards something you do not feel ready for. It may ask you to let go of something familiar. It may push you into new circles, new possibilities, new expressions. But if you obey, you will never regret a single step. Intuition is the soul's compass. It cannot lead you astray. When you begin to walk this path, others will notice the change before you do. They will remark upon your timing, your poise, your strange ability to just know. They may say you have become lucky, but luck is simply intuition obeyed. And now, as intuition awakens within you, the next phase of your prosperity opens, stepping into your divine design, the perfect pattern for your wealth, your work, and your millionaire expression. When you are ready, we shall move forward into that sacred unfolding. There comes a sacred moment in every seeker's journey when intuition, having cleared the inner path, begins to reveal something far greater than mere guidance, the outline of divine design. Divine design is not ambition, nor is it the plan one forces upon life through willpower. It is the perfect blueprint held for you in divine mind since the beginning. Your rightful work, Rightful supply, rightful environment, rightful associations, rightful expression. And when intuition has softened the soil of consciousness, this divine design begins to rise like a seed breaking through the earth. Many people struggle because they are trying to prosper in a design that was never theirs. They cling to jobs that deaden them, relationships that shrink them, or identities that belong to old patterns. They say, "I must stay here. This is all I know." But abundance does not flow through stagnation. Supply rushes through the channel of right work, the work that expresses your true nature, your divine gifts, your spiritual appointment. Let me tell you a story of a woman who lived in a small apartment, cramped and dim, though her dreams were bright and expansive. She felt confined not only by her room, but by her work, tasks that left her spirit untouched. One December, she read the phrase, "I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way," and it stirred something within her. She began to say it each morning. At first, nothing moved. But then intuition whispered, "Set an extra place at your table." She obeyed. It felt absurd, for she lived alone and saw few visitors. Yet each evening she placed the extra setting with reverence, as if welcoming an unseen guest. One night, a friend dropped by unexpectedly and noticed the place set. "Are you expecting company?" the friend asked. The woman laughed and said, "Yes, though not from this world." The friend was intrigued. Days later, she introduced the woman to someone who needed assistance in a field aligned with her natural gifts. This simple introduction led to a position that expanded her life dramatically. She moved into a brighter home, received a higher income, and found herself expressing talents long buried. She said to me later, "That extra plate opened a door I did not even know existed." And indeed, divine design had been waiting for her faith act. There was also a young man who wore a shabby suit to every opportunity he sought. He believed his outward circumstances justified his attire. I told him, "If you wish to step into a larger life, dress as one who belongs there." He resisted at first, thinking it vanity, but spiritual law is not concerned with vanity. It is concerned with signal. You must send the subconscious the signal of what you believe to be true. So, he purchased a new suit, modest but well-tailored. That very week, he was invited into a meeting that changed the course of his work. His demeanor, his voice, his very posture was transformed by the simple act of dressing in agreement with his divine design. People often say, "When opportunity comes, I will prepare." But metaphysics teaches, prepare and opportunity comes. Your divine design is always trying to reach you. It is tapping at the windows of your consciousness, seeking expression. But it cannot enter until you open the door with your decree. "Let the divine design of my life now come to pass." Say this until you feel a stirring within you, as if a hidden chamber of your heart has opened. Divine design does not come through strain, nor through anxious striving. It comes through faith, readiness, alignment. I once counseled a man who worked tirelessly in a job that drained him. He feared leaving it, believing it the only source of his supply. But I reminded him, "Your job is not your source. God is your source. Your job is but one channel of supply." I taught him the affirmation, "What is mine by divine right now comes to me in perfect ways." He repeated it faithfully. Soon, the very company he worked for underwent changes, and he was offered a position far more suited to his talents. He said, "I thought the door was closing, but it was opening." This is the nature of divine design. It disguises blessings as rearrangements. People will notice when you begin stepping into your right place. Your entire bearing shifts. There is a new steadiness in your voice, a clarity in your gaze, a calm that cannot be shaken by outer conditions. You look like one who belongs to the life they are walking toward. Even your home begins to reflect your rising consciousness. Perhaps you tidy old corners, rearrange furniture, or feel moved to acquire something lovely in faith. These acts are not trivial. They are signals to divine intelligence that you are ready for the larger life awaiting you. Consider the biblical story of Peter casting his net on the right side of the boat. He had labored all night on the wrong side, yielding nothing. But the moment he obeyed the divine instruction, abundance rushed in so swiftly that the nets nearly broke. This is metaphysical truth. Abundance is effortless when you stand in your right place. Divine design never strains. It clicks, it aligns, it flows. When you are in your rightful work, you feel enlarged, not diminished. When you are in your rightful surroundings, you feel inspired, not confined. When you meet your rightful companions, you feel supported, not drained. And when you step into your rightful wealth, you feel natural, not overwhelmed. Let us speak plainly now. Your millionaire identity is already contained within your divine design. You are not forcing something unnatural. You are stepping into what has always been prepared for you. Wealth is not an exaggeration. It is your rightful expression when you are aligned with your true work and guided by spirit. Here are the affirmations that align you most quickly with your divine design. Let the divine design of my life now come to pass. I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way, and I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. What is mine cannot be taken. What is not mine cannot remain. Repeat them until the old identity dissolves. Repeat them until doors open. Repeat them until the path becomes unmistakable beneath your feet. And now, with your divine design emerging, we turn to the most potent creative force in your journey, the Word. For even divine design cannot manifest fully until you learn to speak in accordance with it. When you are ready, we shall step into the chamber of the boomerang law, where every word returns multiplied. There is a law woven through the universe so precise, so unfailing, that once a person grasps it, they hold the key to shaping their entire destiny. It is the boomerang law of words, the truth that whatever man sends out in speech returns to him multiplied. Words do not vanish. They travel, they imprint, they construct, they summon. Your word is not merely sound, it is substance. It is the invisible architect of your affairs. And I tell you, with absolute certainty, no one becomes the first millionaire in their family without mastering their tongue. Some believe they can speak fear and live in faith. They believe they can speak lack and receive abundance. They believe they can joke about misfortune yet expect prosperity. But the law does not bend for sentiment. The law only obeys the decree. The subconscious mind accepts every word as an order, and life shapes itself to fulfill those orders with immaculate precision. There was once a man who complained daily about his finances. Even when blessings arrived, he gave them no acknowledgement. He would say things like, "Money never stays with me," or "I can't win for losing." He thought he was speaking casually, even humorously, but spiritual law does not recognize humor. It recognizes vibration. It recognizes instruction. And so his life reflected exactly what he declared. When he came to me in frustration, I said, "You are standing in the harvest of your own words. Speak differently, and life will obey differently." I gave him the affirmation, "I expect the unexpected, and my good now comes." He resisted at first, for pessimism had become his habit. But as he repeated the decree, something shifted. His speech became hopeful, his posture more upright, his countenance brighter, and life responded. He received offers, invitations, and unexpected income. He said, "It feels as if my life was waiting for me to speak differently." And indeed, it was. Let me tell you of another woman who constantly joked about being broke. She said it with a smile, believing her light tone removed the sting of the words. But the subconscious hears only content, not tone. If she said she was broke, the subconscious accepted it as law. She always had just enough to survive, but never enough to flourish. When she finally understood the boomerang law, she fell silent for a moment and said, "I have been cursing my own pockets." I taught her to say instead, "The magic purse of the spirit is filled and refilled for me now." Within weeks, she received refunds, gifts, and opportunities that multiplied her income. Her astonishment was genuine, but her results were not miraculous. They were lawful. Words are seeds. Every sentence you speak plants a seed in the garden of your subconscious. Some seeds bear fruit quickly, others take time, but all return in season. If you plant weeds, you reap weeds. If you plant abundance, you reap abundance. And your family's generational harvest has been shaped, perhaps for decades, by the words spoken before you. We don't prosper. Money is hard. We just can't get ahead. People like us don't become wealthy. These were seeds, and generations harvested their bitter crops. But you, dear listener, are the new gardener. The moment you speak a different word, the entire field begins to transform. Others can sense when your speech changes. They may not understand why, but they feel the difference. Your voice carries new authority. Your declarations no longer tremble. You begin to speak as one who expects results. People treat you with more respect. Doors open more quickly. Conversations flow differently. Even opportunities respond, for everything in life listens to your tone.